today we're going to talk about hoarding, or in particular we're going to talk about what it was like for me as a really young kid growing up in hoarding. One of the weird things about growing up in that situation is not realizing what's normal. To me, I thought everyone's house looked like that, and then what you saw on TV and movies was just pretend. Like, obviously most people's houses aren't TV, movie pristine all the time, but I thought that that was just something that you did when people were coming over, and like the rest of the time your house was a total train wreck. I'm not gonna pretend that my house is always clean or anything, but it's certainly not hoarding levels of bad. I definitely remember teachers telling me that things weren't normal. I was in a GT program that had me write in a journal all the time, and I remember many instances of my GT teacher telling me that's not normal when I would describe something in a situation like, I don't know, maybe climbing over piles of stuff, or waking up to cats fighting on my feet, or sleeping on a mattress on the floor in the hallway. Like, these are the kinds of things that my teacher would be like, that's not normal, and would send up red flags to my family. We also would get pretty detailed report cards, and those report cards would not just include stuff about how we're doing in school, but also stuff about our personal hygiene, and that definitely taught me a lot. Obviously, what teachers would say to me isn't the same as what they would say to the other people in my life, but sometimes I was involved in those conversations, and sometimes I just heard those things, and, you know, kids pick up on stuff. They're not as clueless as people think they are. I definitely remember learning that I smelled bad. That was truly mortifying for me, because I just had no idea that I smelled bad, but I could tell when someone else smelled bad, because they smelled like a different kind of bad. But I grew up in a situation with like 15 cats and no working bathroom, so it's not like we could keep our hygiene in check. I also remember being shocked to learn that people brush their teeth every single day. No one in my family brushed their teeth every day, and that was just not a thing. I remember when I asked someone in my family, I was like, am I supposed to be brushing my teeth every day? Is that like real? Do people actually do that? And I was told, oh, well, it doesn't really matter now because you have your baby teeth, so it doesn't matter until your adult teeth grow in. So I never gained those habits, and brushing my teeth every day is still something that I struggle with. There's not a lot that I'm insecure about, but I remember one of my first videos, someone commented about how my teeth were yellow. I think that what they actually said was, go brush your teeth, and I cried. I also remember being very insecure about my socks, because we wouldn't sort our socks, they would just be in a huge bucket for everyone. And I was the youngest, so then I was wearing socks that were made for people much bigger than me, and I remember someone making fun of my socks because they were way too big for me, like way up my leg. And after that, I would not wear mismatched socks or socks that were too big under any circumstances. Another thing that goes along with the hygiene is the constant infestation of bugs. So we pretty much always had head lice and fleas, and one of the things that I don't know if people really realize is how embarrassing that is. Getting head lice one time, not a huge deal, but getting head lice many times, getting pulled out of school constantly, getting pulled out of school right after they're doing a head lice check, those things really add up, and other students start to catch on. And those kinds of things can really negatively impact you as an insecure little kid. Something that really stands out to me about growing up with hoarders is the misalignment of priorities regarding stuff. I would lose things that were really important to me because instead we were prioritizing things that weren't important, like literal trash. Old McDonald's toys and things like that that are collectible, but of course no one's ever gonna buy those. When I was in about 3rd grade, we lost our house, and when that happened, a lot of the stuff that was in there got left behind. It was one of those dramatic situations where like the bank locks you out of the house and you can't get back in, and we knew for weeks, of course, that that was going to happen. And so we were packing, but we weren't packing the most important things. And one of the things that I lost was a doll from my grandmother, and also a tea set from my other grandmother. And those things wouldn't matter so much to me now that I'm an adult, but when I was in 3rd grade, those were like the most important things I had. And we were prioritizing these other things because there was an inability to distinguish what was important. In addition to the difficulty regarding prioritization of things, there was also a difficulty regarding prioritization of actions. It was always a focus on organizing and cleaning, but it was never a focus on throwing things away. It was about finding places for these things, not whether these things should be kept. Now I'm gonna end this with one of the most traumatic stories from my childhood. When I was in high school, I was on the field hockey team, and I was the only person in my class on that team, like in my grade. It was tradition that one time for your senior year, you would host a spaghetti dinner for the team the night before a home game. Now, obviously, in a hoarding situation, that can be an issue. So I went to my coach and I said, I cannot host a spaghetti dinner. It's not possible. And my coach said, that's fine, you can totally host it somewhere else and your parents can pay for it, which was also not possible. And I tried to explain to her that we couldn't afford to do that, and she basically told me to figure it out and that I needed to be a team player and that I had been to these spaghetti dinners every year before that, so it was my turn. So I spent multiple weeks dreading this and mortified. I tried to make part of the house as acceptable as possible, and I was forced to bring about 25 judgy girls to my house. I should note that there was no door on one of the rooms that led directly to the hoard, so I covered it with a sheet. As you can imagine, that was a horrible situation for me. People left as soon as possible, which I was very grateful about because I didn't want them there to begin with. And I will never forgive the adults in that situation for not listening and understanding the situation that I was in. And I hope that being in that space taught them that maybe this is not an accessible option for everyone. So that's it today for the early life of Kim. If you have any questions about what it was like growing up in hoarding situations, feel free to leave them. But I'd like to remind you that I keep my topics about me and my experiences, not about people who hoard, because I'm not qualified to talk about that. Have a great day and happy Thanksgiving if this happens to go out before Thanksgiving. If not, happy holidays in general. But can you not? Really? You just have to be in my lap at all times?